Badlands, explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, Russian, Russia, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Saturday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. As usual, I am joined by my co-host Chris. Chris, how you doing, sir?
I'm real good. Horrors are, kind of it's like a very mild to average week for the horrors.
They're loitering, maybe you could say.
They're hanging around, yeah.
Loitering, but not necessarily persisting.
They're not
I get
trying to
that.
come in.
It's Christmas week, you're not going to be too pervasive, but you might still see some horrors around.
Isn't it weird that they've basically stopped that news has stopped?
Oh, it's been so boring.
Yeah.
Like it's been a while now, like a couple months maybe, but especially lately. But we do have some fraud stuff we can talk about. I do see in the private chat, you're like, if we want to talk about the Jews and censorship, we got this. It's like, don't even have to open that. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to get into the Smalley fraud today because that's like a hot topic. And anytime I see financial fraud from our government, it makes me wonder, why are we paying our taxes?
That's a good question.
So we'll do that. I think we could do a little deep dive on the SCOTUS ruling. I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
Was it last week?
No, I think it was just Monday or Tuesday. Maybe you and Burning Bright talked about it on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. We just did a cursory, read the article about it, but we didn't go into. It's pretty interesting, especially the dissenting opinions. Really like those. So I know we both have highlights. We'll go through that. We can talk about silver a little bit because that's just going bonkers right now, and China's doing some shenanigans with that here this next week. So I think that'd be worthwhile. North Korea has a nuclear submarine, and they're bros with Putin. It's like a zero hedge article. It's hilarious. We got Ukraine peace back in the news again. We're on the the wash, rinse, and repeat news cycle with that one. I was expecting a Trump phone call with Putin today, with Zelensky meeting him tomorrow. I don't think we got it.
Is tomorrow the day that Zelensky shows up at Mar-a-Lago?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I didn't check the date.
I thought it was going to be just as a head of talks between Ukraine.
I think it's incredible that for over 3 years, they have been like, the end is right around the corner once we have this meeting. And then like 3 days before the meeting, they're like, Ukraine has a chance of winning. It's all war all the time.
And then Putin's like, well, if I want to, I can just take over all of Ukraine right now. So whatever.
And then you remember that all of Ukraine is already Russia.
That's very true. Yeah, it looks like the talks began today.
Yeah. Scheduled to begin Saturday.
Yeah, in Florida. Interesting. But yeah, this is while bombing's gone. We'll get to that. And then also, we can always get into some election fraud stuff. Maybe make fun of Patrick Byrne a little bit for his latest bullshit. Man, that guy. I don't know what happened, but we'll get there. So let's start things off real quick with a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll see where the night takes us, man. We got some CB Distillery. Guys, they have another big sale going on. If there's ever a sale you needed right now, this is it. CB Distillery's end-of-year sale is on. You can save up to 50% on everything with code RUMBLE. The holiday chaos, late nights, and family parties have left you feeling stressed and sleepless. It's time for some CBD from CB Distillery. They've got natural solutions for just about everything. Better sleep, less stress and more calm, improved mood and focus, pain relief after workouts, and even some CBD for your pets. CB Distillery is different. Their hemp is grown right here in the U.S. It's third-party tested and free from artificial dyes or fillers. Just clean, premium CBD solutions, and that's why I trust them. They also have over 2 million satisfied customers who also trust them. So seriously, don't miss the sale, guys. Treat yourself and save up to 50% on everything. Head to cbdistillery.com and use code RUMBLE. Again, that's cbdistillery.com, promo code RUMBLE. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. I think that's the only other sponsor we got till later. So
alrighty then.
Which story do you want to talk? This is my Christmas gift to you. You can choose the story we discuss first.
Well, maybe we should talk about some of that election fraud stuff. Because so I'm writing a piece right now, and I just thought it was crazy that all of these election fraud stories in the last 5 or 6 weeks, they've just been popping up again and again. We had Liberty Vote buying Dominion. Then we began the Emerald Robinson and Patrick Byrne nonsense about how, who knows? I was trying to look and find the beginning of it today, And she's been making these threads for years. She did a show in 2023 about how Venezuela would have a fake election in a year. So they were previewing the, stage show that they're producing now about Maduro stealing the election last year. There's the Georgia revelations. The Tina Peters stuff is coming to a head. TPUSA is focusing all the attention back on the midterms. There's, I don't know if I'm remembering all the examples. And then Trump has been posting post after post of these, pieces of testimony by people like Clay Parikh. And who was that? I'm going to mess up her name. Melissa something.
Melissa something sounds right. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her last name.
Michigan.
But, yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, so it's just like all of this push that makes it seem like we're about to get some of that kind of like widespread public understanding that our elections are fake. And at this point in the timeline, it all seems like a total limited hangout,
Oh, yeah.
Treating that stuff as though it's all breaking news right now and being like, okay, we need a new election system. I feel like we're going to get handed one on a silver platter and everybody's just going to accept it because they're like, what do you mean? Like this suits all our needs. And they'll get some election integrity people to agree to that and the rest of it. But that's a mistake we make from thinking that this is breaking news. People have known this stuff for 5 years. And if you didn't factor it into your thinking for 5 years, why would anyone trust you in your assessment of the situation right now if you're pretending this stuff is breaking news?
That's such a good point. One, you didn't mention Scott Pressler, so I feel like there's got to be a couple stories you're missing.
Yeah, ballot chasing.
Yeah, so stupid. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that is definitely a concern. We're going to be in such a rush and have such this mad desire to fix our election system because we all know, especially in our community, how fraudulent our elections are, that we're going to settle for something that isn't going to actually fix the problem. It's going to be a Band-Aid. And like the exposure we're getting with the Somalia stuff and the fraud, like that is the timing of that along with Trump's election stuff is very interesting because I don't know how you fix a problem like we have or the problems that we have in this country without a clean slate, because it's not just Somalians. It's not just Minnesota. It's not just Medicaid. It's not just whatever the daycare stuff they're doing. And I have a clip for that, but it's like probably every single government program that exists. It's probably everybody, not just foreigners, but also, people who are actual citizens. It's the government officials themselves. Everything is fraudulent. I was reading through the DOD OIG report today. I wonder which tab I have that on. But it's something like they can only kind of account for 32% of their budget. And even within that 32%, it's like billions and billions of dollars in errors. Like that just math just doesn't add up. And it doesn't like say exactly what it is. It's just like, here's a recommendation. We could probably encourage the people in charge of accounting to do actual accounting. So let's do that next year, guys. But there's no actual, ramifications or anything for that. It's just pervasive. And the timing of it is just interesting. The fraud with the election fraud. And I don't know, man, it does feel precipicey, but every time I say that, I feel like I'm wrong. So it's probably not.
Yeah. Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen was posting in the last few days about some of this election stuff. And it seems like there's the coordinated messaging campaign is geared toward getting the public at large to understand that the presidential election of 2020 was stolen. Okay. Like yes, I understand it was a very big election, but that's one election out of all the elections. And we're supposed to believe that that is the only one that was stolen. It was done by a foreign country and the rest of it. And so, along with what you were just saying about how fraudulent this system is from top to bottom, I replied to his post, and most people don't even engage on Truth Social. They just bring their Twitter posts over to like service another community and then go back to Twitter and talk to important people. But I said elections are fake, just like polling is fake. And polling, they judge the polling on how well it models the fake election.
Yeah.
And we believe the fake election results based on how the fake election results reflect the polling. And so all that stuff's done. And we hear about like the statistics what do they have? GDP statistics this week, crime statistics this week. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's all money laundering. And we just still give our power to this system and probably will forever until, unless people like really learn the full lesson. And that's kind of what the point of my piece is. Like, if you were to catch up on an informational timeline, you would understand that you are minimum 5 years behind on realizing that our elections are fake. They're not just stolen or rigged. They are fake. And so a different solution is needed. And then we have to reassess everything that's happened over these last 5 years from the viewpoint that has been adopted only by Badlands, that those elections actually were fake and that Joe Biden is not a legitimate president. And the things that he's claimed to have done were not only invalid by AutoPen, they were invalid because he wasn't president. And so there's so much there to unravel. And it seems like such a daunting task. Thank goodness somebody did all the work in advance, but we actually have to get through that stuff. It's taking the hill of America understanding that our elections are fake. That's not the hill that we need to take, unfortunately.
I also, I don't think it's that big of a stretch to like go to the average person and be like, yo, did you know our elections are fake? And then be like, well, yeah, I mean, I'd get that. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think that would be that shocking and blow that many people's minds, especially like even in 2020, the people who supposedly voted for Joe Biden or whatever, like they all knew that everybody knew that election was stolen. They just didn't care. They didn't give a shit. So I don't think exposing election fraud, it's necessarily the goal, because I feel like people get it. It's more so making it socially acceptable. Like that's the thing. It's like your party of false decorum thing. People,
I'm 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. People just want the permission to be able to talk about it again. But those are the same kind of people, like they're not going to move the ball forward in terms of solution or anything. They'll just accept whatever solution is given to them by the Con Inc. And that's the problem.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that in 2020, they would have been ready to accept that our elections are fake, at least intellectually, maybe not socially, maybe not emotionally, maybe not willing to contend with what that actually means about our society and the legitimacy of our government and the system of rules that, control our lives in some large part. But we have communicators on quote unquote both sides that still have major platforms. And part of that's because the truth community has supported the mainstream media for the last 5 years. But those people, all they have to do is run their coordinated messaging op, which by the way, is directed by DPUSA. And they will just keep everybody inside the pen and make sure that we can't get to that next level, because the priority is to preserve the election system and the American people's total reliance on elections as the standard by which we give our power away. And the acceptance of this system as something that either we chose or our friends and neighbors chose to our detriment.
How do you think we get to that next step then? Because if Trump is who we think he is, he knows what they're trying to do. Like they're going to try to hijack whatever the replacement system is, if we even get to that point of getting one. But you got to imagine Trump isn't going to allow that to happen. But it shouldn't necessarily even be up to him. It should be up to us in some form or fashion. And so what do we do if we actually get to that point? Like, what does it mean to cross the Rubicon of fixing our elections or fixing the system, when I don't think we can? Like, I can't think of a single person I would trust to be like, yeah, this is the new system that we're going to roll out, guys. Just take it. Like even Trump, based on the actions I've seen from him these last, like this term so far this year, he's just like going with the flow on everything.
Yeah.
And so like, I wouldn't trust the system that comes from the Trump administration necessarily either.
Yes.
Oh, you cut out. You cut out.
Just freeze. Yeah, yeah.
Now you're back.
There's something weird with my connection. I don't know what's happening. I might have to reset when we take our next ad break. But Trump always signals, right? So if we are at the point where he knows in a few days that there's going to be some communication where the coordinated messaging op begins to sell us on the next election system, he will be previewing that and creating controversy around it. And then we'll see that whole coordinated messaging op rush in early to defend an option that actually hasn't been presented to the people yet, just so that they can protect their ground. And then the whole thing will probably collapse beneath their feet. But again, Trump's been saying the right things the entire time. He told us that COVID was a hoax before any of the lockdowns or any of the masking or any of the vaccines. And people said, you're not trusting the science. And now they blame him because they took the vaccine. It's like he told you the disease was a hoax and you still took a vaccine thinking that it was going to save you from a disease that he told you was a hoax, right?
He also told you the Epstein files was a hoax. And how many of you guys got on that rug and blamed him because of the podcasters? Oh, you're out again.
I think I froze again. At some point, it has to be the people's responsibility to understand that half measures aren't going to work and that the new system proposed by the people who run the old system is not going to be to our benefit. It's going to be for their control. And, the last part of wrestling with the fact that our elections are fake is understanding that fake elections can't produce legitimate governments. And so if we don't have a legitimate government right now, we certainly can't trust them to install a new election system.
Yeah. And we clearly can't trust them to do the fraud stuff either. I'm going to play this clip. This is just a brief 1-minute clip from this guy who is now being shoved down everybody's throat. I mean, yeah, he did a great job going to these places, but the amount of people that are like, look at how awesome this guy is compared to the mainstream media. It's like, okay, is this going to be a plant? Is this a Fed? Looking side-eyed, but his reporting here is pretty baller. So let's listen to this clip quick. I don't know if you got to fix your mic or anything too, Chris.
Can you not hear me?
I can now. It was just cutting out every now and then, but we'll go with it. And if it happens again, we'll play the soft disclosure ad.
All right.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong. And they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. If you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday. Children should be in here. And this place is licensed for 99 children. And this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelled the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this. And this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
It is funny they got the sign wrong. Like they went to somebody to get the sign made. And so not only did they put the wrong letter probably in there, like, we want the sign made, but somebody printed it and didn't catch that. But I did find that this video is pretty funny too. Very short.
Quality Learning Center, welcome. Come on in, let me show you around. Look at all this space, plenty of room for learning. Over here, this is the money counting room. My guys keep it moving. Hey. And right next door, the very important fraud department. Paperwork for days. So what are you waiting for? Call today, sign up.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
This is what our taxpayer dollars are going towards. I wonder how much of our, however much we make in tax or whatever, government spending is just legit fraud. Like how much of it? 50%? All of it?
I don't know what they pay for that we actually would want or need. They do fund major portions of the economy, but then at the same time, they inflate our money to worthlessness and import millions of people to replace us. So, the money that they're pumping in, where does that money go? Whose pockets does it end up in as they, increase the business for corporations by shutting down all the mom and pop shops with a fake pandemic? It's that kind of stuff all the time. A friend of mine was sending me information. I talked about this with Brian a little bit yesterday on Daily, but sending me information about these addiction recovery centers in California that were being opened up and funded by the government because, CanCon brought up an article about how Gavin was starting this program for recovery centers for displaced vets and stuff. And you think, oh, well, that's a good cause. Just like addiction recovery is a good cause, or children's learning is a good cause. And they just allow people to get their licenses from the state to say that they're doing these things. They purchase a property or rent a property. And of course, all that gets paid for. And then they just pretend to have one of these centers. They could staff it with people who don't exist right off the voter registry and just take government funds in all the time. It's crazy,
insanity, man.
But this is everything, everywhere. It's nuts.
It's crazy. And people are just like, we're online complaining about it. Like, oh my gosh, look at all this fraud. I sure hope the government who committed the fraud fixes it for us.
Yeah. These people who steal all our money all the time are going to be really mad when we vote them out of there on their own system.
So retarded, man. And then we just keep going. I was talking, I think it was on my show, or maybe it was Wednesday. Oh, no, it wouldn't have been Wednesday. But on my show, we were like, 2026, we need to come up with a new year, like Badlands. It's the year of the retard. I feel like retard was 2025. But I feel like we could use it for every year this decade, because just watching how people interact with the news stories when they're like this, just like breaking news. Oh my God, you'll never believe it. It's so retarded. It's so retarded.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that it holds me back from having any form of hope of moving past this cycle we're in, because so many people are just taking it.
Yeah. Because they're statists. And that's like what we've been indoctrinated into. And letting go of statism is difficult for people who don't believe in God. And of course, we've been indoctrinated into that as well. Yeah. And, this is all of these problems have a practical level, and then they exist on much deeper levels. And solving the practical level does not fix the problem. And, we can talk about that with elections, but we can talk about it across the board with all these things. There's something much deeper going on here. And people, a big part of it is that people believe the state really is there to organize how they live.
It's insanity, man. Insanity. But yeah, so I'm curious to see what's next. I mean, we're getting multiple things now. First was the Medicare fraud in Minnesota. Now it's the daycare stuff. I think I saw a number. The fraud level there is over like 10 or 12 billion or something that they've come to so far. I wonder if it's going to be a new state or another program that's exposed. And I'm curious to see where it goes, because is this a more coordinated disclosure op, to go in line with some election stuff? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to put my eggs into that basket, but I would like to see some form of resolution here.
Yeah. The only, I am obviously 100% on board with the idea that the government is totally corrupt, and any thread we pull at is going to show that.
Yeah.
That said, when we see a coordinated messaging op like this Minnesota fraud thing about Somalis, you gotta understand that we're probably being hoodwinked. There's a hoodwinking in there somewhere. And it may just be that this is part of the scripted story that they were going to roll out along this timeline to get the Democrats and make it hard for them in the midterm cycle in 2026. And so, to that extent, I do worry about this stuff, particularly when there is a or I don't know about major, but medium plus grade geopolitical event revolving around Somalia right now. And I don't know, we don't have to get very deep into this, and people can say whatever they want about Israel and our boy Yuhu, but he just recognized Somaliland as an independent country. And so this isn't Somalia changing their name to Somaliland. I don't know if we talked about this on Only Lands or on this show a few weeks ago, but Somalia has never been a real country. There's two different warring lands that the regime has tried to make one place, and all that has led to is constant civil war. And we can look at this in a second. Yeah, but Somaliland is the sovereign side of that not the Somalia with Mogadishu as the capital, which is a regime proxy. So the idea that one of these potentially sovereign leaders in Netanyahu is recognizing Somaliland, this territory that the regime has been trying to bring under their control, their sole control, for like a century, it's kind of a big deal. And so to see the Con Inc. Coordinated messaging campaign in the Minnesota thing going side by side with that event just hits a lot of signals.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I did some reading. Did I say this pre-show or did I say it during the show when I read the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff thing?
You said that to me
pre-show.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, earlier today I was going through just looking through Joint Chiefs publication stuff, and I was looking for PSYOP things, but I came across this article here, the effort to save Somalia. And this talks about how like we got involved over there. And I thought it was pretty interesting because a lot of the framing that they put in here as the justification for going there was media images, like graphic images of starving children just really got you pulled on the heartstrings of George Bush. And that's why we started this thing. And you made the comment, and maybe you can just make the comment now about the media images being bullshit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if the media images are bullshit or not, but the idea that the military was activated on the basis of media images is a little hard to believe. Like the media images might have sold the country on being okay, that we're going to go wage a war for nothing in Africa. And of course, it's not for nothing. It's to subdue this now independent part of that region on behalf for whom we were just the police force for decades. Yeah.
Well, in this report too, they talk about Somaliland and how they broke away on their own from the civil war that was going on. Like you said, they wanted to be sovereign. And then they even mentioned in here, the only reason for even going north would be to deal with the entirely different problem of a breakaway Somaliland regime. So these people that wanted their own sovereignty, you know, we might have to send troops there to stop that from happening. But yeah, this the Somaliland thing, I wonder if my article's archived yet. It's not quite. For whatever reason, this is
I can see the Reuters one. I posted about this earlier.
Yeah, or if you just want to pull it up and read whatever you think is important.
For sure. I think that it's, here we are. Okay, so, oh no, hold on. I just need to pull up the archive link.
And there is this too that people are talking about. Somalia is going to be the president of the UN Security Council for the month of January. Some funny timing there. Because every country,
right. Like that's just
nice little coincidence.
Little coincidence there. Okay, so Israel becomes first country to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent state. Let me see where I am here. Abdullahi said in a statement that Somaliland would join the Abraham Accords, calling it a step toward regional and global peace. He said Somaliland was committed to building partnerships, boosting mutual prosperity, and promoting stability across the Middle East and Africa. But Somaliland's government condemned Israel, or Somalia's government, condemned Israel's move as an unlawful step and a deliberate attack on its sovereignty, rejecting any recognition of Somaliland, according to a statement from the Prime Minister's office. And I had one more quote from this as well. Let me skip down here. Where are we?
Somaliland has enjoyed relative autonomy or something it said there?
Yeah, there we go.
Enjoyed effective autonomy and relative peace and stability since 1991 when Somalia descended into civil war, but the breakaway region has failed to receive recognition from any other country. Why is that?
Maybe I just had these in the wrong order. I also have this. Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed in an expo said that Netanyahu's recognition of the territory was illegal aggression and contrary to established legal and diplomatic rules. And remember, he's doing this under the auspices of the Abraham Accords that have been led by Donald Trump. The European Union also urged respect for Somalia's unity and called for meaningful dialogue between Mogadishu and Somaliland to resolve long-standing differences. Egypt said Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati held phone calls on Friday with his counterparts from Somalia, Turkey, and Djibouti to discuss what they described as dangerous developments in the Horn of Africa following Israel's announcement. So they're going to do dangerous things. They're going to commit terrorism, it sounds like. The ministers condemned Israel's recognition of Somaliland, reaffirmed their full support for Somalia's unity and territorial integrity, and warned that recognizing breakaway regions posed a threat to international peace and security, Egypt's foreign ministry said. So this, I would suggest, is not only a good twin, evil twin proof, but a our boy Yuhu proof as well.
Yeah.
You see the global regime going fully against Netanyahu and the idea that this country deserves to be sovereign and independent.
Yeah, I have so many just random thoughts. One, whoever came up with the name Djibouti, I would like to buy that man a beer. I absolutely love that. It's my favorite name of a country that exists. But number two, the parallels between this situation and the China-Taiwan situation is interesting to me because everybody's like, oh, Taiwan, they're independent. Like China, you can't go in there. But then now everybody's like, oh, wait, Somaliland, you're not independent. You go back to Somalia. Like they're picking and choosing the countries whose sovereignty, like they want their own sovereignty away from this other nation they used to be a part of. Why are we granting one but not the other? You know what I mean? Then also the European Union being part of this. Isn't there talk of like some of the countries up there that want to break away from the European Union? Isn't that a thing?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, all of these kind of collective global organizations have to be brought down at some point. People don't actually want them. All of this was the kind of one world liberal international rules-based order being put in place and being enforced by the U.S. military, by NATO, by UN peacekeeping forces, etc. That system's falling apart. That's the macro pattern that we've been talking about now for years. That same model is happening all over the world. And we're going to hear about it with Venezuela and Guyana at some point, which is what all of this is a lead up to protect on behalf of the regime, in my estimation. Russia, Ukraine's the same thing. China, Taiwan's the same thing. North Korea and South Korea is the same thing. You can go around the world and spot every one of these instances where borders have been drawn by the global regime post World War II. And we can see that the people who live in those countries don't respect those borders at all. They don't believe that those borders matter in any way because they don't. And all that's being reversed. The maps are being redrawn to the way they were before.
Something in the chat just said Somaliland is nowhere near Somalia, but I just want to show you that's not true. If you bear with me here for a second, I can pull up Google Earth.
That would be wild.
Djibouti. Oh, where's Somaliland? Isn't it right up here?
I don't know if that's the best map.
Did they take it off? They took the title off of it?
That very well could have happened.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to look. Somaliland.
I mean, it would be shocking.
Yeah.
Considering that we just heard about Mogadishu being upset that they were taking away Somaliland.
Yeah, so I mean,
I haven't looked at a map of this in a few weeks.
Yeah, here it is. I mean, Somaliland's right there at the top, but then on Google Earth, they don't even recognize it. Just all Somalia.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
funny.
they show global regime maps.
Yep. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, that's all I had on that. I mean, the Netanyahu thing, I still don't know what to think about that. I know our boy Yuhu is where you're at. I'm much less. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
And I don't know.
But that's just a character model. That doesn't mean I think he's my friend. Everybody's like, what are you saying? He's a good guy? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that he is clearly assisting the agenda from our end, whether he's doing so on purpose or not. Like out of the goodness of his heart, or because it's the last thing that he wants to do, but has no choice.
Oh, you cut out again.
And when we understand who those characters are, it's predictive of their behavior. And we can use that to predict their behavior successfully every single goddamn time. So I'm just going to keep doing it,
Yeah. No, you're killing it. You did cut out there again. We missed something of what you said, but
no, I saw it cut out and I tried to get it back, but
that's okay.
When you do the commercial, I'll reset.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this real quick and then we'll do the commercial and then we'll get into the SCOTUS ruling. I just want to briefly mention the price of gold and silver because they are going bananas right now, both all-time highs. Silver, I didn't know they updated the APMEX or whatever. I didn't know they updated these charts over the weekend, but they did because pretty sure it closed at like 79 something. Now it's up over 80, which is nuts. And what's even more nuts is supposedly China this coming week is going to be stopping all of their silver exports like this coming week. And they account for 13% of the world's silver supply. So I also think that could, not financial advice, but if I were you, I would at least give a gander to badlandsgold.com and check it out because I don't know, it's only going up. I still think it's artificially suppressed, but I thought this is interesting, but especially with Bitcoin not really going up, but silver and gold going up significantly the last few weeks. It's been pretty interesting to see.
So China is going to hoard physical silver, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. People think that it's been artificially underpriced. I'm totally on board with that assessment. I think everything that is actually valuable is price controlled by the system for their benefit, no matter which way they have to control it. This thing's interesting. I haven't spent a ton of time digging into it. There's something about the paper price, right? And like when those get out of balance.
I mean, paper price is just fake fucking silver. Like if you're going to buy silver, you want to buy the physical stuff. What I think is most interesting about the physical silver is the use cases with technology stuff, like with all the talk of data centers and chips and AI and power plant stuff. Like they use silver in some of those materials, like in some of those products. And so the actual use case, again, maybe that's makes it more interesting that China's hoarding it because of that future, that could potentially be coming. But yeah, I don't know. People are saying that China's trading above $90 this weekend. Oh, Red Pill 78 wife, what's up? Good to see you. But yeah, so interesting stuff. But Chris, we'll take a quick soft disclosure commercial spot, and then you can reset your mic and stuff.
I'm resetting everything.
Reset it all. We'll see you in a couple if you want to go do that, guys. If you haven't yet, you got to get yourself some soft disclosure. I mean, now that I'm alone, I got the close up. Do you see how awesome my beard looks right now? It's from the beard oil. My skin is just smooth, silky smooth. That's from the lotion. My deodorants smell great. My pits because of the deodorant. It's awesome. It's all from softdisclosure.com. And the best part about it is you'll be supporting Badlands Media, Annie from Willow and Farms, and basically 3 of Annie's neighbors. So that's 5 total American companies that you'd be supporting with one purchase. It's a great way to have a great skin and great everything. I mean, it's a great skincare product. But on top of that, you're putting your money where your morals are. Check it out. The sale here is going away January 1st. So it's through the end of this year, and then we're taking it away.
Soft disclosure, just dropped new favorites for the season. The lotion, your 5-ounce favorite, is still here. And now we've added full 11-ounce bottles. New lavender tea tree deodorant, clean, calm, and effective. New tallow bars, chamomile lemon rose, and naked. Rich moisture that actually works. And now the lineup is complete. Beard oil in unscented and spiced vanilla. Palo lip balms, available in chamomile mint, vanilla, naked, and vanilla tangerine. Palo bar minis for pocket-ready hydration. Available in vanilla coffee and naked. And finally, lavender vanilla lotion. Clean, calm, and made to work. Visit softdisclosure.com. Use code Badlands and get 15% off. Soft Disclosure, for truth you can gift.
Truth you can gift. Somebody in the chat said it puts the lotion in its basket or else it gets the hose again. And that's spot on, man. Love that. Oh, is Chris back? There he is.
Yeah.
What's up?
It's working.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try to get my my Adobe up here, my PDF, so I can share the SCOTUS ruling.
I'm going to pull that up as well.
Okay. Can you see this? Yes, you can. Awesome. Okay, so this is the SCOTUS ruling that came down last week, and it had to do with the National Guard being called into Chicago. And the reason I find this so interesting, and you'll see why here in a little bit, but there's a lot of talk of posse comitatus and potentially some Insurrection Act stuff. And I think that's notable because for the past 4 years, talking about the devolution theory, been trying to figure out a way Trump may have found the legal authority to justify implementing something like devolution. And some of the arguments you'll see in this and some of the questions that get raised that they aren't addressing, but that just get raised. I think it was Alito at the end who had some really good, like, these are the questions we should be talking about. They're ones that you would have to answer if Trump had to reveal, yeah, I implemented devolution and this is what I did. Here's Supreme Court. What are you going to do with this? Those are questions that are brought up in this. And I think it's very, very interesting, almost borderline fascinating.
Yes. And we're also being told on a pretty wide basis by a number of people, all the way from clickbait influencers on X, formerly Twitter, to Alex Jones, that this is the Supreme Court giving Trump permission to defend the homeland, as though the Supreme Court could give him permission to do his constitutional duty.
Yeah, that's pretty wild too. There's a
statism baked into that as well, by the way. The idea that that the Supreme Court needs to give the president permission is a function of the increased view of the power of government.
Yeah, I want to find the clip that Patrick Byrne it was Patrick Byrne and Alex Jones today.
Yeah, he's finally gotten a new hoodie.
Yeah. Let me just pull this up because maybe I'll play this quick before we go through this. Because some of the things that Alex Jones says here, he brings up continuity of government, which I thought was super out of the blue. Does Alex Jones talk about continuity of government a lot? I don't think I've ever seen him really mention it. So right off the bat, it seems a little grifty, but he totally misconstrues it too, or at least misconstrues something he says in relation to it. So maybe this is worth sharing here. Let me see if I can get this video pulled up. Okay, here we go.
What else has fallen into a trap? These schmucks in Minnesota who are saying we won't protect ICE if the public goes after them. Trump has by the way the Supreme Court wrote a decision recently, Trump has the obligation to if he's sending in ICE and he wants to activate the National Guard, he can only do it, says the Supreme Court. This is a new twist. They ought to just say Republicans can do it this way and Democrats can do it this way, but Republicans can't really do it. Anyway, they say that Trump can only do it if he first exhausts his federal resources. Well, that means that he now has SCOTUS authority to bring in the Marines or anything he needs. He doesn't really need them.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the Marines are not under posse comitatus. The Marines are not under posse comitatus.
Yeah, they report directly to the president.
That's not even close to true. I mean, they were clarified, it was technically added in 2022 just to make sure that people wouldn't mince words, semantics and whatnot, but they are 100%. They fall under posse comitatus. This is the 2022 NDAA.
To report there's a special chain of command.
For people that don't know, and I'm an expert on the police state, folks, and this is not them trained to take your guns or trained to take over resources. When there's an emergency, the Marines serve at the president's pleasure.
You got it. For example, I think they have a unique, without going into details, a unique role in the to deal with
COG. Continuity of government, the Marines are key.
Yeah, but also with sort of nuclear storage and things like that.
Yeah.
They report directly. They don't have to go through much chain of command. It's small. It's what, 50,000 people?
Well, you saw a beta tester in the LA riots. He started to begin to activate the Marines.
Yeah, well, they have now. So Minnesota, they're falling into the trap.
It's like watching two drunk uncles argue after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it kind of does feel like that a little bit. It just wild. I mean, there's so many things I want to.
It's also worth noting that neither of them actually read that decision.
No, neither of them did. And also,
this is.
It's also worth noting.
This is how we're being informed. Yeah, and he's saying, well, without going into too many details, the stuff that I know from my secret special job, I can't tell you that stuff. Neither of them read the decision, and they are informing large audiences about what the decision says.
Yeah. But hey,
opinion, I should say.
Can you just like feel blessed and thankful that SCOTUS bestowed upon Trump the authority to call in the military when he needs to?
I mean,
Like, you just be thankful for once. It's Christmas, man. This is the season.
I know. What am I thinking?
How dare
You
you?
know, how many times have we talked about the responsibility that Donald Trump has as commander in chief to defend the homeland? The idea that he can't use the military to defend the homeland whenever he wants is preposterous. And the fact that it conflicts with laws that are supposedly on the books for however long, and that the Supreme Court and other courts have gone by as legitimate for however long, all of that is irrelevant. And when they're put to a constitutional test, they drop away. So talking about what posse comitatus allows is preposterous. The same thing with the Insurrection Act. We don't need that stuff.
No.
Donald Trump doesn't need to ask the Supreme Court for permission to do what the Constitution allows him to do. And the Supreme Court has no means of stopping him anyway.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And, we can see in the aftermath of this decision that there is a coordinated messaging op again to focus attention on the Insurrection Act and Donald Trump's, like, whether he's allowed to do things as commander in chief that the commander in chief is totally allowed to do.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's another attempt at delegitimization. Like, they're making it sound like Trump doesn't have the authority to do things that he totally does. But also, what you said there, and I think this is the most important part, is the judiciary branch has no enforcement mechanism outside of the executive branch. Like, if Trump decides to do something, there really isn't anything that can stop him from doing it. Like, if he needs to exercise his presidential authority on something like calling in the troops to the National Guard, whatever, SCOTUS can't like come and say no, and then all of a sudden that stop without Trump being the one that's like, okay, I'll pull them back. Like, it would be up to Trump to do that. They have no enforcement mechanism. It's so stupid. But anyway, the arguments raised here is interesting, though.
I'll just say one more thing and then we can get into it. The problem with this discussion in general, and I guess it's not a problem with the discussion, it's just something precarious about the implications of the position, is that we better trust the president to be serving the people at all times, which is not something that's possible to do in a world of fake elections, because, one of the hypotheticals in this, and maybe it's in the Kavanaugh concurrence, is about a mob attacking federal buildings or whatever, and how long that persists, what kind of threat they pose, and the rest of it. Well, if the president can single-handedly declare what is a mob and then use the military against that mob, you're putting a lot of faith that the president is going to use that degree of authority responsibly on the people's behalf. And then it becomes, well, which people, Yeah.
It is interesting, too, thinking back to January 6th and the use of the National Guard after reading Chris Miller's testimony to the January 6th committee. Like, that was highly revealing. Trump had the Guard available. He didn't call them in himself. It was up to Nancy Pelosi, all those things. But they positioned the Guard there. They'd had them not have any weapons on them because they didn't want there to be any shootings or anything. It was very careful use of National Guard, knowing they would eventually have to go in there because they knew. By the way, Chris Miller's totally fallen off the map, which is
weird, huh?
Yeah, super weird. But let's start going through this, and if you have any highlights above this, let me know. But
I did not have highlights above that, and I highlighted maybe half of what you highlighted there, so that'll cover it.
It's all pretty much the same thing. The ruling comes down to the meaning of the term regular forces. Right here in its supplemental brief, the government argues that the term refers to civilian law enforcement officers, such as those employed by Immigration and Customs Enforcement or the Federal Protective Service. Respondents, echoing the district courts, maintain that the term refers to the regular forces of the United States military. And the Supreme Court concludes that the term regular forces likely refers to the regular forces of the United States military. This interpretation means that to call the Guard into active federal service, the president must be unable, with the regular military, to execute the laws of the United States. So, do you have anything in addition to that? I mean, we don't really have to. You want me to keep reading?
Yeah, I think that this part's worth it. Yeah.
Okay. Because the statute requires an assessment of the military's ability to execute the laws, it likely applies only where the military could legally execute the laws. Such circumstances are exceptional. Under the Posse Comitatus Act, the military is prohibited from executing the laws, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress. So before the president can federalize the Guard, he likely must have statutory or constitutional authority to execute the laws with the regular military and must be unable with those forces to perform that function.
Yeah, I mean, this is only a problem because they have gone against the Constitution and written in extra constitutional and anti-constitutional limits on what the president can do. You know, we have a constant discussion about checks and balances and the branches' ability to check one another. We have already discussed how that's not actually how things are supposed to be. And when they write laws that refute parts of the Constitution, well, the system of checks and balances, the balance of powers, is going to be thrown off, and it becomes inactionable and totally incoherent, as we can see here.
And I'm pretty sure, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but in one of the dissents, they talk about like in the lower court ruling where this got, you know, got ordered or decided, I think it was Seventh Circuit or something. They weren't even arguing about the term regular forces. That wasn't what the argument was about.
Right.
But it got up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ordered them to define it. And with the supplementary briefs, they both argued it. And then the court ruled on something that wasn't even under the purview of the lower court ruling, which is even more interesting. It's like, we want to shoot this down, so we're going to create a problem and then provide the solution for that problem that wasn't even part of the original discussion.
Yeah, there were some interesting comments on some of the procedural stuff that happened at the lower court and at the Supreme Court. And this is, you know, Ash and I were talking about this in the chat the other day. It's this stuff has for a long time, for many of us, felt significantly orchestrated to the point where a lot of it is generated specifically so that particular legal moves can be made. And this is one of those cases where you look at some of these steps and how they operate. And even some of the Supreme Court justices are like, what in the world is going on here? Yeah. How is the court making arguments that the parties have specifically not made and had presented to them and still chosen not to make? So some weird stuff's going on.
Yeah, and we'll probably get to that in more detail as we go through, because I do have quite a bit of highlights. The president has not invoked a statute that provides an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. Instead, he relies on inherent constitutional authority. I mean, that's what a president's supposed to do. That, according to the government, allows him to use the military to protect federal personnel and property. But the government also claims, consistent with the longstanding view of the executive branch, that performing such protective functions does not constitute executing the laws within the meaning of the Posse Comitatus Act. I just thought this was retarded. Like, yeah, the president is going to rely on inherent constitutional authority. That's what he's supposed to be doing. But then you're saying that in one hand, he is relying on it, but then he's debunking himself. Like, just the fact that he's relying on his inherent authority means the rest of it doesn't matter. But you're trying to make a definition here, like make it a semantics thing that he can't do it.
Yeah. It's also funny maybe we'll get to it. Actually, I'll hold off.
Okay. If there's anything else on here that you want me to,
let me peek. Are we on 4 yet? We just passed 4.
Is this a regular 4 or Laura Loomer 4? Actually, I don't think this is a page.
It's 4 as it's numbered.
Okay, so here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, did we get to this yet?
That's
what
we
just did. Yeah, okay.
This is my next highlight.
Oh, that's your next one. Great.
Yep, this is Kavanaugh's concurring. In my view, the statutory term regular forces likely refers to the U.S. military, not the federal civilian law enforcement officers. On the current record, however, it does not appear that the president has yet made the statutorily required determination that he is unable, with the U.S. military, as distinct from federal civilian law enforcement officers, to ensure the execution of federal law in Illinois.
Yeah. So I think on the current record is interesting. So he's saying specifically the president has not made this claim yet. So he's potentially going to make that claim in the future. He just hasn't yet. The idea that all of the federal civilian law enforcement has to be used and then the military cannot be used, and he's got to meet those standards before he can call the National Guard from another state in. Well, man, that's already pretty kind of convoluted and ridiculous. But if you think about how these things were in the founding era, they didn't want or at least there was some argument and controversy and discussion about whether or not there should be a standing army in the first place. The idea was that the states would each have their militias. All of the men of each of the states would be trained to serve in the militia if they were called upon. And then once we became a union, the president could call the militias together in service of the national defense. And we're so far beyond that situation now that we have the permanent federal standing army and the rest of it. And by the way, if that stuff is being slowly dismantled, and this is not because I don't support the U.S. military, for God's sake, and I know that people will attempt to take it that way, but there are other models we can pursue for defending the country while honoring those soldiers and the legacy of our armed forces. But if we were to decentralize the military, for instance, and return to the states, all of those soldiers, equip those states and let them have their militias, well, then we have a different question arising in a case like this about calling the militia from Texas or wherever into Illinois to defend and enforce federal law. Yeah. So that is a more real world situation that actually requires an important conversation. This is about like the letter and meaning of laws that shouldn't exist in the first place.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're spot on. I don't even have anything to add to what you said. But I do want to skip down to Alito. That's the next highlight I have. Is there anything else in Kavanaugh that you wanted to?
There is. So he did go on to say right there, the president, of course, would have great discretion to make that determination, as the state itself acknowledges. And of course, that is the other element, is that the president is the one who determines the need and the status and whether there's an insurrection, an invasion, a rebellion, whatever it might be. Then at the bottom of that page, he also said the government has not carried its burden to show that, section 12406 subsection 3 permits the president to federalize the guard in the exercise of inherent authority to protect federal personnel and property in Illinois, even if the president finds that he is unable with the military to protect federal personnel and property from harm. So
he's arguing against himself here again. They're saying that the president has the inherent authority, but then they're saying that he has to prove it. Like he has to prove that he's doing it. Like the whole thing is so stupid. And this is what is so weird about Kavanaugh's argument as well, is because he's like, he's siding with them on the definitional part of it, but he's somewhat kind of acknowledging too that like, yeah, he does have the inherent authority, but I'm going to vote with them because of this one argument that we made up on our own as we went through. That's what's so stupid about it. It's like, I didn't understand his vote nor his explanation.
Well, I would only suggest, and this is speculation and this is a conspiracy theory, so no one is required to believe it in any way. The fact that he took this step and wrote this way, I just pointed out the on the record thing a little earlier. This is another route. This is another avenue that probably needs to be driven down at some point so that we can actually get the contours of the president's authority here and these discussions all resolved on some level.
Just a psyop.
Exactly. I mean, they all feel that way at this point. But hey, that's me saying it, and I think that about everything. People are like, you say that about everything to avoid conversations. No, I genuinely believe that about everything, and I'm more than happy to go through with you exactly the details of the particular psyop.
Well, and that's the thing, man. Like, if you were to do that, if you take the approach of thinking everything's a psyop, you're going to be right about those things being psyops way more often than the people who are like, I'm going to believe everything because it's all true.
Yep. And here's the thing. If it's not a psyop, it's going to continue presenting itself in reality. And once it does that, I can accept it. If you think that there aren't psyops happening all the time and that the people on TV aren't lying to you all the time, you're going to get hoodwinked pretty much every time, unless one of the clickbaiters says, oh, guys, you don't look at this one. They're trying to trick us. I saw it on an anonymous message board.
So dumb.
It's not going to get you there, guys.
We're going to unify, man.
Yeah.
2026 is the year of unity for the midterms. That's what this is all about. We're going to come together as a party on the right. We're going to vote in all the best red candidates. The red wall is the Kirks
All the red
call it.
guys are going to save us.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Traditionally, red is the evil color too, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just that red and blue always in opposition kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's also interesting how many Republicans and Democrats, I guess, too, are choosing not to run for re-election. And who knows what that's all about. I think it might be, at least in part, because none of them could have ever proven their legitimacy in office. I would not want, if I was a corrupt politician, I would not want to keep running for office in the current state of things.
I also wouldn't want to just be a politician generally. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, other than all the great money and all the great, like, all the perks.
And the people who are still doing shit for money and not like on principle are going to have a hard time in the future.
I was never in this for the money. But it turns out that the money was an absolute necessity for me.
That's a great one.
Dude, yesterday I posted the Michael Scott Nigerian email scam thing. I posted like just in Trump confirms why he bombed Niger today, and I was like, it was the email scam thing, and so many people thought it was like I was being serious.
Oh, come on.
People watch The Office to get my references. 99% of anything I post is going to be, I can't even share screens to switch it because I can't get out of my PDF. So never mind.
Are we on Alito now?
Yeah, I skipped down to Alito. Kavanaugh's was just kind of boring, but Alito and I think it's Gorsuch at the end.
Yeah.
These guys were great.
Yeah. And it's also important people understand that Kavanaugh's was a concurrence because some of the people who kind of set the tone on the response and the Insurrection Act clickbait posts said that Kavanaugh was dissenting. That is just not true.
Yep. So this is Alito dissenting. Okay. Thomas is joining him. I was kind of hoping we'd see a Thomas dissent, but I guess he just agrees with everything Alito says here. In this case, the court has unnecessarily and unwisely departed from standard practice. It raised an argument that respondents waived below, and it now rules in respondents' favor on that ground. To make matters worse, the court reaches out and expresses tentative views on other highly important issues on which there is no relevant judicial precedent and on which we have received scant briefing and no oral argument. So this is what I was talking about earlier. They raised an argument that was like wasn't part of the situation prior and then ruled on it against the government because of those arguments. It's just so dumb. First, the court suggests that the principal statutory provision involved in the case contains a restriction that has no grounding in the statutory text, namely that unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States actually means unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States for reasons other than the lack of lawful authority to do so. The court, in effect, adds new language to the text Congress enacted. I think he nails it there. I see why he put it in bold.
Yeah. I mean, again, this situation is just so convoluted. Let's continue.
Okay.
This comes up a few times.
Yeah, I skipped down to, I think it's this next page. So I don't know if there's anything on
Let me see where I'm at.
2.
I actually did have some stuff on page 2.
Okay,
Second, the court implicitly suggests that 12406 sub 3 does not constitute an act of Congress within the meaning of that phrase in the Posse Comitatus Act. So it's almost like they're trying to just slip around this fact that the Congress did put this law in place, but that doesn't constitute an act of Congress that would give the president the leeway to exercise his inherent authority. And then
12406.3 is the unable to execute the laws, by the way, and it's a law from Congress. So obviously them citing it would, be an act of Congress.
Yep. And then just to the next paragraph where he talks about the third thing, according to the court's apparent reasoning, National Guard members may enforce the immigration laws by, for example, arresting and processing aliens, but they may not perform the protective functions for which they are better suited. So they can't protect civilian federal agents. They can't protect federal buildings. That's what's being contested. They don't want them called in for those purposes, but they are allowed to do other types of law enforcement.
Yep. And it goes on to say that, the court fails to explain why the president's inherent constitutional authority to protect federal officers is not sufficient to justify the use of the National Guard. And he goes into detail here below. So I think this is where it gets
I was more super highlighting in there.
Yeah. And so if there's anything you have highlighted that I don't.
Highlights, John. How about that?
We do on this one?
Yeah. Actually,
Awesome.
I have one more sentence. I have one less sentence at the nevermind and one more in the first of the next paragraph. And I'm sure our audience thinks that that's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I do. It's some mind meld going on. I love it. Well, which part do you have highlighted up here that I didn't?
You start where you are, and because I started where you are, and then we just have one different thing toward the bottom.
Okay, so thus the argument that regular forces means the military was either waived or forfeited 3 times over. Ignoring this history, the court ordered the parties to file supplemental briefs on the meaning of regular forces. Respondents, understandably, rode with an argument suggested by the court and argued for the first time, and contrary to the position below, that the regular forces means the military. So he's explaining here the story from before where the respondents basically argued with the argument the court gave them on an issue that wasn't part of the case in order to rule in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, that seems a little corrupt. It's like Norm Eisen wrote the case Supreme Court. You should probably sneak this in there, and then these guys should argue it, and this is how we get out of this.
Wait, did he actually? Because that totally sounds like the sort of thing he would have done.
That's why I said it. It's like Norm Eisen would.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you.
Yeah, but I bet if we did a search,
I'm going to look on Brookings right now. I was just on there earlier today.
Yeah, see if he has anything about this ruling from before it got ruled on. Never mind that respondents had presented a contrary theory of the case in the district court. For the court, respondents' own arguments, differently directed, fell by the wayside, for they did not mesh with the court's own theory of the case.
Yes, and then I highlighted the next sentence. We should decide this application based on party presented controversy. And I think that that's just an important principle for people to understand, that the court's job is to assess the arguments presented that are in front of them, presented by the two parties in front of them. Mm-hmm. That's what they're adjudicating, not their own political opinions about those arguments. And they can't insert arguments that they think would make one party's case stronger, which is just the most obvious thing you could possibly imagine from a judge who is meant to be impartial. But we've just totally given that away. And we actually expect the judges to be partial because the media always tells us who nominated them.
That's so true and so stupid.
Yep.
It's like exit polling for judges,
right?
That's what it is. The next page,
By the way,
have this.
Brookings did do a podcast and then publish the transcript on their site about this case in general back in September. So I don't know how much that might have influenced the argument.
Post the link in here, and I'll
just posted it in the chat. I will post it.
Okay, I can grab that one.
Here you go. Oh, or whatever.
Yeah, that works. Well, let's see here. What is let me see if they talk about regular forces. They don't. Okay, so I'll look into that more later. Next page, this is all I have highlighted. I don't know if you have anything additional.
See where I'm at. Yeah, just that whole paragraph before B.
Yeah, in this case, the court has no good reason to stray beyond the issues that the parties chose to present. And based on those arguments, the court should grant the application. There's no basis for rejecting the president's determination that he was unable to execute the federal immigration laws using the civilian law enforcement resources at his command. In concluding, otherwise, the district court likely committed both legal and factual error. And I really like this one because one of the precedents that I always go back to when I'm talking about the devolution series is the Campbell versus Clinton, where there may not be a war based on declaring war. It might just be based on the actions of another country, and only the president can determine to what degree of force the crisis demands. That was me paraphrasing terribly, but that's the gist of it. And this kind of gives me that vibe. It's up to the president to determine, and we can't reject that. Yet you guys are doing it with a different argument. It's so stupid.
Yeah, they are really just trying to use a process argument to say that the president didn't actually prove to them that he was unable. That's not their determination to make, and that's what Alito's pointing out here.
Yeah.
And even if it was their determination to make, they still didn't provide a basis for making it. They just said he didn't prove that he's unable. Crazy.
Stupid and crazy. I didn't have anything highlighted again till these ones on the next page.
I do have some stuff. Where are we? Are you on 5?
I'm on 5.
Yeah. I highlighted most of 5 actually. The last sentence of 4, and then those first 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, we can read through. We can read through all this. It is good stuff. If the term regular forces means federal civilian law enforcement officers, that interpretation would mean that the president would have to conclude that the immigration laws could not be enforced in Illinois, even if all other federal law enforcement activities were put on hold, and every federal law enforcement officer in the country, including every FBI, DEA, Secret Service, and ATF agent, every postal inspector and deputy marshal, and all the law enforcement officers employed by other agencies were transferred to that area and assigned that task. He's been like, you guys are retarded. Like, this is what that means.
Yeah.
The district court's interpretation would lead to even more outlandish results if regular forces means the military. In that case, a president could not call up the National Guard to execute the laws in one locale unless all the nation's military forces, if transferred to the area in question, would be incapable of executing the laws.
The full force of the federal bureaucracy, civilian law enforcement, and the military would be unable to quell the problem. So then the president has the right to call the militia into another state, because it's important to remember that that is ultimately the argument that's being assessed here. The president's ability to call the militia in from one state and use it in another.
Yeah. And this is so funny too, because if you think of what they're arguing for, a situation that the National Guard would need to be called in, like, I can't even, that's a country ending situation. Like, if the entire military can't even handle what's going on there, and you still need the National Guard, like, you're already fucked. Like, we're already done. So stupid. A less extreme interpretation of unable is much more reasonable and consistent with the way the term is commonly used. In everyday speech, a person may say that he or she is unable to perform an act simply because the adverse consequences of performing that act would be unacceptable. For example, an attorney might tell a trial court judge that he or she is unable to start a trial on a particular day because the attorney is scheduled to argue a case in this court on that date, and no other attorney could prepare for the argument in time. That attorney would be capable of showing up for trial on the day in question, but the attorney's use of the term unable would be entirely natural. I thought that was good. And this next one is good too. I'll read it. The district court's interpretation of unable was implausible for an additional reason. It seems to prohibit deployment of the National Guard unless president could not execute the laws to even the slightest extent. The district court took what it termed a binary approach, ability or not, capability or not. As the Ninth Circuit explained, however, Section 124063, the law enforcement section of the law, cannot plausibly be read to mean that so long as some amount of execution of the laws remains possible, statute cannot be invoked regardless of how much execution of the laws remains thwarted or how much personal danger federal personnel face during operations. It is more reasonable to interpret that it means the president is unable to execute the laws when he is substantially impaired from doing so.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that they could still say, well, the president is still able to do this with regular forces based on their judgment, and there being like some even the slightest ability to actually do that successfully, and that would be enough. I also thought it was particularly interesting that the case he's citing there is Newsom versus Trump from this year.
Yep.
So it's another case that could very well have been orchestrated by our boy New.
The district court also erred in refusing to afford any deference to the president's determination that calling up the National Guard was needed to execute federal law. And skip down. Section 1 of that law governed use of the militia when the country is invaded or threatened with invasion. And 2, much like 124063, authorized use of the militia when the execution of federal laws is obstructed. Addressing one standard, Justice Story's opinion for the unanimous court held that the authority to decide whether the exigency has arisen belongs exclusively to the president. This reminds me again of Campbell versus Clinton.
Indeed.
His decision, the court held, is conclusive, and therefore application of the statute depends only on his own judgment of the facts. And then reaffirming the holding in Martin and the unreviewability of the president's decision to call up the militia.
I actually highlighted that last sentence there too. Such treatment of a Supreme Court precedent that has never been overruled, narrowed, or questioned by this court was inappropriate. So they violated their own precedent. Now, I don't care about the court violating precedent because precedent is not law. And stare decisis and the rest of this all has to be reassessed.
And Thomas wants to do that. Justice Thomas has said he wanted to do that.
Yeah. The only standard is whether or not the issue at hand comports with the original Constitution. That is the only thing, the only standard by which the Supreme Court should be judged. All the rest of this stuff is nonsense. And thankfully, there are at least 2 justices who are firmly of that mindset.
Yeah, and this is what Alito's really hinting at, is like, you guys are stepping way out of bounds here by trying to interpret this. And he even says here at the end, even if Martin does not dictate judicial acceptance of a president's decision to call up the National Guard, both that precedent and a humble appreciation of the role of a single federal judge surely demanded that such a presidential determination be given a modicum of deference. The district court afforded none.
Yep.
Kind of love that. It's like
they did not defer to the president's ability to judge the situation. They just replaced the president's judgment in his like constitutional authority with their own judgment about a situation they're not involved in.
Yep.
It's crazy. Again, I mean, we've said that so many times right now. Tonight, I should say.
But that's why this is so good, because like it nails it on the head. Once the proper legal framework is recognized, the president's determination must almost certainly be sustained. The government's declarations show that U.S. immigration and customs enforcement operations in and around Chicago have been the target of unprecedented sabotage and violence since June of this year. And then it goes through a whole bunch of examples.
Yeah, I think that the examples, I actually highlighted the examples because I think that this is probably worth it. Okay. And it's also worth it because we had this exact situation previewed for us in 2020 in Portland when, Antifa was attacking the federal building in Portland that was being guarded by, I think, National Guard troops. And I could be wrong about that last part. But that was happening during the Summer of Love. These rioters have been organized, gathering off-site and arriving in vans, then getting picked up several hours later by vans returning with new rioters. They have arrived armed with shields, gas masks, protective padding, and other tools for physical combat. And they have blocked entry and exit at the ICE facility, physically assaulted personnel attempting to enter or leave work, significantly damaged the building, and vandalized both government and personally owned vehicles. So is that enough? Is that, and I just mean a question for the audience to ponder, is that a sufficient standard for the president to call in the military to quell this uprising? I don't know. That's
up to the president.
Well, it is up to the president in his constitutional authority, but because these conversations are necessary among the American public, because we have been steered so far off course about our responsibility in deciding how the country is run, I think these are important judgments for people to make on their own.
Yeah. It is interesting how it's transitioned too from like the arguments were about whether or not they could be deporting these citizens at all. And now the arguments are about like, okay, well, next step, the deportations are happening, but do the people deporting them need any protection from the military to do their job? Like, so we've gone beyond the first argument to the second, which I think is notable.
On the next page, there's just one small highlight down toward the bottom. And I thought this was interesting in line with what we just discussed. Criminal enterprises have offered bounties for kidnapping or murdering immigration officers. And the extent to which we've talked about criminal enterprises, including like the transnational criminal enterprise known as the global regime, or, the various RICO issues that we've discussed with common uniparty political corruption. I thought that was an interesting tag there.
Yeah, my next highlight is down page 9. Okay. Even if the president's assessment of the situation is given what was that?
Oh, wow. That totally didn't transfer. I said I don't have anything till 10, so you're good.
Okay. Even if the president's assessment of the situation is given no deference, these facts adequately show that federal civilian probably officers.
Officers.
What a bad typo. You're doing so good too, Alita. Were unable to execute the immigration laws under what appears to be the correct understanding of that standard. And then I don't have another highlight till.
All right. So
11.
on 10, about halfway down the page, for these reasons, the validity of the district court's two criticisms is questionable. But even if they are taken at face value, they cannot justify the court's wholesale refusal to credit the declaration's uncontested description of serious and continuous violence. And so, again, they're just kind of adjudicating whether or not the claims about what's happening outside were claims that they believed, because they're disputed in the media. One side says one thing, like, for instance, in the Summer of Love, we were told that those were mostly peaceful protests. And the president said, well, no, these are mostly violent protests. Here, look at the violence. It's being reported by a bunch of PSYOP cinematographers on social media every night. So it's very hard to know what's actually happening and not, because so much of this looks staged, but that's where we are. And could it be staged for the orchestration of these very court issues? Yes, of course it could. And when you get to a level of orchestration that seems really like, oh, you guys are just making up everything so that you can change the country's understanding about how we're meant to be governed. There's one side of that that's like, hey, this is a good PSYOP to break the bad PSYOP. And we actually need to have all these conversations. And I agree with that to some extent. But on the flip side of that is, you better be damn sure that every time you use that explanation, you're right about it, because otherwise you are just supporting the two sides of the controlled opposition within that great reset narrative that has been written a long time ago. And all of this stuff seems like some part of that.
Yeah, and I think, again, the ultimate point here, it doesn't matter whether the PSYOPs are real or fake or whatever, like the situation at hand, the argument should be whether or not the president has the authority to do the thing. And they chose a separate a separate reason, part of the PSYOP, to dismiss and say he doesn't, without having to actually address whether or not he really does. It's like, well, we can't address this issue because of this reason that doesn't matter. Whether or not he has the authority is something different. I
have just the last part of that. Thus, even if we assume that presidential determination under 12-406-3 is reviewable and not entitled to any special deference, the district court erred in refusing to credit the unrefuted facts offered by the government. So they're saying that regardless of whether or not you believe the claims, they certainly haven't been refuted. And if they haven't been refuted, then they should be presumed to be accepted. And you don't even have to give the president the deference in that. You're not even refuting his claims. And then it goes on. Those facts provide more than enough support for the president's determination that he was unable to enforce federal law in the Chicago area using federal civilian law enforcement officers.
And him even addressing this point, I think, is kind of moot, because it shouldn't matter. Like, they shouldn't be adjudicating the determination. The determination is the president's determination, and there is precedent for that. Like, he's the one that gets to decide this stuff, but he's doing it anyway, and it still is interesting. Instead of abiding by the standard rule on party presentation, the court took it upon itself to raise the question whether the party's understanding of regular forces was correct. And taking a cue from this court, respondents abandoned their position below and switched to the argument that the phrase regular forces refers to the military, not civilian federal law enforcement. The court tentatively agrees with respondents' new argument, but even if that is correct, it does not follow that the president exceeded his lawful authority when he called the National Guard into federal service to assist in executing federal law in Illinois. And I do have more here. Aren't we almost to, let's see where Gorsuch is. Oh, we still got a little ways yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I only have a few pages left. There are only a few pages left.
Yeah.
Too many highlights. I think we can get through all of it on my end.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go through it all.
Okay.
No matter what. Do you have anything else under here? I have a couple.
Yeah, I actually did just right at the bottom. Oh yeah, the same that you have, and then I went in to the pretty much the next full paragraph as well.
Okay. The provision asks whether the president is unable with the regular force to execute the laws of the United States, and the president said unequivocally that he had determined that the regular forces of the United States are not sufficient to ensure the laws of the United States are faithfully executed in Chicago. Not only is this statement sufficient on its face, but under the presumption of regularity, the court must presume that the president properly arrived at his determination. When the president exercises an authority confided to him by law, the presumption is that it is exercised in pursuance of the law.
And that's an important, yeah. And it's important because of the media environment and the political tenor that's been set over the last decade, that everything Trump does is somehow wrong and that he doesn't have the ability to do it, even though he's the president.
But yet everything is about protecting our democracy, which the democracy we're sold is he's allowed to do this stuff, guys.
I was thinking about the, not to go too far afield here, but I was thinking about our democracy thing and how far back this stretches. And the fact that when you suggest that the majority of people get to choose everything for everyone, and, you can hear about the tyranny of the majority or the tyranny of minority, all this stuff is political theory and the rest of it. But once you've chosen that, if you apply that to morality, then you are in a world of moral relativism where it's just consensus group opinion dictates whether or not something is morally good or morally evil. That is total relativism. That is the opposite of having a godly standard about morality. And because our law and our government is supposed to be based around the idea that we're going to protect natural rights, we're going to protect moral law. In fact, the idea in legal theory is that if a law isn't moral, it can't be law. Relativism is what allows for the system to devolve into what it's devolved into. No offense to the word devolution, of course.
None taken.
Oh, that's nice.
I speak on behalf of the word. But no, that's a great point, man. You said you have this next one highlighted too?
Yep.
Okay. The majority does not explain why the president's declaration falls short. Instead, it breezily concludes that a president's inability to execute the law cannot be established unless the military could legally execute the laws. In effect, the court adds new language to the statute so that it now requires that a president be unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States for reasons other than the lack of lawful authority to do so. We have no authority to add this new language to the text Congress enacted. I think we read that point earlier too.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing else here. There are more examples.
I don't have anything till the bottom of page 13. And then, I also thought that the footnote there at the bottom of 13 was interesting as well.
Yeah, we can read those
separately. Yeah,
I did read that. I don't know why I didn't highlight that
first. Yeah. Do the footnote and then we'll come back to the.
Yeah, the footnote. If the law about executing the laws is triggered only when a president determines that he is unable to execute the law by using the military, it is not easy to see how a court could assess and reject such a determination. As discussed, inability under 12406 should likely be interpreted to require no more than serious detrimental consequences, and therefore the statutory predicate should likely be regarded as satisfied whenever the deployment of military units for the purposes of executing the laws at home would have such consequences. Assessing the impact of such a deployment would require a survey and analysis of all the nation's military needs, and only President and those under his command are equipped to make such an assessment. It's like stay in your lane, courts.
Yeah. And it's so obvious that that's true. Why would the courts have anything to say about what level of military action is required at any point ever?
Yeah. But here we are. And maybe this is the point, as you kind of alluded to earlier. Maybe this is the point for the court to be overstepping. And we're seeing fraud everywhere else, right? Like, why not see fraud in the courts? Let's see it.
Yeah.
The court seems to suggest that the Posse Comitatus Act stands in the way of what the president did here, but that is puzzling. Does the court mean to suggest that the Posse Comitatus Act somehow limited a president's inherent constitutional authority? That is certainly not Congress's view.
Yeah.
See 6 U.S.C. and by its express terms, the Posse Comitatus Act is not a complete barrier to the use of the armed forces for a range of domestic purposes, including law enforcement functions, when the use of the armed forces is authorized by act of Congress or the president determines that the use of armed forces is required to fulfill the president's obligations under the Constitution to respond promptly in a time of war, insurrection, or other serious emergency. Love that part. Like,
Yeah, they're just saying straight up that law can't limit him from exercising the duties that are expressly assigned to him.
Yeah, the court finds the Posse Comitatus Act relevant largely because the same phrase, oops, didn't mean to highlight that, to execute the laws also appears in 124063. The court's reasoning appears to go as follows. Under position long taken by the government, the Posse Comitatus Act does not forbid the use of the military for protective functions. This means that the performance of such functions does not constitute the execution of the laws. And I have a couple more down here that I thought were interesting.
They're not even operating in like the right domain is the case being made here.
Yeah.
Right?
The court's reasoning rests on the presumption that a phrase has the same meaning when it is used in closely related statutory provisions, but that presumption is not conclusive, and there are reasons to question its application here. OLC's interpretation of the Posse Comitatus Act is based heavily on the history and purpose of that act, not the ordinary meaning of the phrase execute the laws, which easily encompasses protective functions. Moreover, one of OLC's reasons for narrowly interpreting the Posse Comitatus Act's was to avoid intrusion on the president's inherent Article II powers and duties. That's notable. Office of Legal Counsel, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what I was going to say. And I think they mentioned at some point that the OLC opinion is by no means binding on the court and like doesn't constitute its own special argument that they brought up this point.
Yeah, I thought it was in a sub note or a footnote.
Could be.
But whatever. Let me skip down to.
I had one more thing on 15 there. Just pulled out the phrase: the president must take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and laws protecting federal officers and property are not accepted. And again, so that's just a description of the president's duties. But I think that it's interesting to focus in on the take care clause and the idea, and this has come up, it comes up frequently in Supreme Court cases, but the way that it is, my impression is the way that they continually interpret it is to bind the president to whatever the Congress has passed and another president has, quote unquote, signed into law, even if it supersedes the Constitution. The president, in his sworn oath, in his duty, and all elected officials who swear an oath to the Constitution, their duty is to the Constitution first and foremost. It's not to all of the laws that have been passed at some point by a Congress, legitimate or not, and then signed into law by a president, legitimate or not. If those laws are in direct conflict with the president's understanding of the original Constitution, that is a full explanation for why the president would not go ahead and execute those laws. That is 100% constitutional and exactly in line with the president's duty. It would be treason for him to do otherwise. And so that take care clause is going to have to be adjudicated as well. And I would venture a guess that Justice Thomas has probably written extensively about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, the president does not take an oath to the judiciary branch; he takes an oath to the Constitution.
And he doesn't take an oath to the laws that have been written by prior Congresses and passed by prior presidents. And you put people in office to make those judgments. That is the president's judgment. He cannot do something that he believes to be in violation of the original Constitution. He just can't.
People don't understand that, though. I'm skipping down to, I think we're on Gorsuch now, unless you had anything else.
Let me just check to make sure. Well, I had some of the stuff from the conclusion of Alito on that last page.
We could read the conclusion, the whole thing.
Yeah. He said this is just before the conclusion. He said very strange consequences. We should not hastily dismiss the possibility because interpreting 124063 in the way the court suggests would have very strange consequences that Congress is unlikely to have intended. Under the court's interpretation, National Guard members could arrest and process aliens who are subject to deportation, but they would lack statutory authorization to perform purely protective functions. So they, again, I guess we kind of went through that earlier, I should have just skipped that.
That's okay. In conclusion, the court should have decided this application based on the arguments that the parties chose to present, and on that basis should have granted a stay. Injecting another issue into the matter was unwise. Suggesting views on a host of important questions without adequate briefing, consideration, or explanation is imprudent. Whatever one may think about the current administration's enforcement of the immigration laws or the way ICE has conducted its operations, protection of federal officers from potentially lethal attacks should not be thwarted. I therefore respectfully dissent. I wonder if they ever disrespectfully dissent. Because I feel like if I was in SCOTUS, I would do that all the time. I disrespectfully offer my dissent to you faggots.
Yeah, then the media would tell us that that Justice Alito is threatening the court's legitimacy
while calling them faggots. Okay, but Gorsuch, this is I love this one. I mean, the last one was great too, but this one gets more like theoretical and raises a whole bunch of questions that I think are really good. This is my first highlight. I don't know if you have anything before it.
No, I only have like just one little highlight there that I believe your highlight encompasses. In fact, it is exactly just that first section of this.
Okay. Is the presidential declaration that he is unable with the regular forces to execute the law judicially reviewable? And if so, to what extent and under what standard? Maybe I should give some, I'm just going to read this whole thing to give us the context here. From Gorsuch. This case touches on sensitive and gravely consequential questions concerning what roles the National Guard and U.S. military may play in domestic law enforcement. To be sure, as the parties observe, Congress has supplied us with some relevant statutory guidance, but as my colleagues' writings attest, that statute raises as many questions as it answers. Take just some examples. Before calling up the National Guard, under 124063, must the president be unable to execute the laws merely with federal civilian law enforcement personnel, or must he be unable to do so even with military troops? Is a presidential declaration that he is unable to, with the regular forces, to execute the law judicially reviewable? And if so, to what extent and under what standard? Does 124063 provide standalone authority permitting the president to deploy the Guard, and how does it interact with other statutes in the field, such as the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act? And I believe this might be only the second mention of the Insurrection Act in here.
Yeah.
And so all the clickbait people out there saying that SCOTUS just gave Trump, the green light to use the Insurrection Act is just wildly, irresponsibly stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the guy that repurposed the Russian Ministry of Defense documents on the Ukrainian biolabs was the one who broke the Insurrection Act story.
Yeah, bioclandestine. What, if any, inherent Article 2 power does the president have to deploy the Guard to protect federal personnel or property? And how might that inform the interpretation of 124063? And if, as all parties seem to assume, today's Guard is the successor to the militia of the founding era, how far can this inherent presidential authority extend before it intrudes on Congress's prerogative to decide when the militia may be used to execute the laws? If all those questions are not fraught enough, an even graver one lurks here too. When, if ever, may the federal government deploy the professional military for domestic law enforcement purposes consistent with the Constitution?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that, as Alito talked about, is whenever the president determines they need to.
Yeah. And that might be problematic. Why is that problematic? Because they created this federal system and then created a standing army and for federal police forces to enforce federal laws. None of that shit should be there.
I agree, man.
And these problems go away if it's not there. And maybe other problems pop up. I'm not trying to say that there's like some perfect situation, but considering that the founders knew at the time this whole thing might be a problem, and then later on it happened anyway, well, we might be on a sound footing saying, yeah, this stuff is a problem. Yes, it has to be done away with.
Yeah. It's one of the interesting things with devolution too, is like while trying to find justifications, like legal or constitutional justifications for Trump doing it, you can find yourself many times being like, well, this is not probably what the founders intended. But it's like Trump is almost operating within the system that was created by the people that were stealing the election from him. And so he's like almost using their own, turning the game on them, like using their own rules against them.
Yeah, we've been talking about that in particular for a couple of years. He has to operate on the base layer of the original Constitution, and then he has to operate within the layer of abstraction that's been piled on top of that.
Yeah.
Even though that thing is not, yeah, exactly. Even though that thing is not legitimately operative in any way, it is what all the people understand to be the system. And he has to be functioning properly in the people's understanding on that level, even though that level doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. It's the battle space as presented to him most often by the media, probably, but all the think tanks and the deep state. Rich Higgins wrote about it.
But once people accept it and believe it, that becomes the new reality on some level.
Yeah, even if that reality is fake and gay.
Yep.
So that's why you. What's your hat say? Not that one. I guess you're not wearing it. The opt-out hat.
Oh yeah, it's not in here right now.
I love that one because I didn't realize until I saw Ty wearing it in Kansas City that it has double meaning. It's bicameral. Like you can opt out, but also you might be opt out. Like you've been psyoped so many times. Like you're opt out. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got a tired ghost resting on a couch.
Yeah, it's so good. Did you have anything else highlighted?
No, that was it.
Okay, cool. We did it. Did it, guys.
Yeah, crushed it.
That was good though. Yeah, not quite what everybody's presenting it to be, but is still like a banger of a SCOTUS ruling. And I want to see what's next because I want to see those questions that Alito or Gorsuch put forth. I want to see the answers to those. I would love to see the court and both sides argue so we can get those answered. Like that'd be awesome. But we'll see if we get there. I had other stuff. I don't know if we kind of already touched on these. Talked about election fraud.
Yep.
Talked about the SCOTUS ruling. Talked about silver prices. We kind of touched on Ukraine peace, didn't we? A little bit.
I mean, we it's not like we need to go too deep into that. I mean, maybe there'll be developments and we can just get back to that next week.
I mean, all I was going to say about it is we've talked about this. It's deja vu. We've talked about the same situation happening. It's a literal cycle until somebody breaks it. But we're at the point where Zelensky and Trump get together and they have their talk and then they go away. One party's mad at the other party. And then so peace cannot be reached. And then Trump goes to the other side and like super close to a peace deal with Putin. They come up with a plan. They present it to Zelensky. Zelensky says he doesn't like it. And then Zelensky comes with his own plan, meets with Trump. Like it just goes on and on and on until we spiral up into oblivion. It's so stupid.
Well, while we spiral out into oblivion, the general public's sentiments about Ukraine and this war and the people who are promoting the Ukraine side and have been now for almost 4 years, that just keeps spiraling out of control as well. You know, that they are exposing themselves full on when it comes to the neoconservative view of the world and how they operate.
Yeah, I want to show this was in the article, so a different article. Let me share my screen here quick. It's so funny. North Korea unveils first nuclear-powered sub as Kim tells Putin their nations are sharing blood, life, and death in the same trench. They're just some bros. But there's this video here of the handshakes that shaped 2025. It's like a year in review for Putin.
Just picture handshakes.
Yeah. It's a lot of handshakes.
Wow.
Okay.
That almost sounded like the Austin Powers theme song for a second.
Almost. But yeah, I just want to show that. Those two are bros. But I think that's all I got, unless you have anything else you want to discuss.
North Korea, I thought this was interesting this week. South Korea apparently had a rocket launch. They were just about to go to space, and it didn't work out. They were launching a rocket out of Brazil for some reason. It's funny. I've said on this show many times, there's just Korea. South Korea is a U.S. military occupied proxy state. and it has been since the Korean War ended, even though it didn't end. And, maybe Trump ended it 5 years ago when he crossed the demilitarized zone. And I think that that's probably the case. And we'll find out about that in a year or two or whatever. But there's just Korea. And it's hilarious because South Korea is the global regime proxy side. They're supposed to be the ones who have our democracy perfected, and they're the best at all the technology and shooting things into space and whatever. So that just kind of, I thought that was kind of funny.
They need more immigrants if they're going to shoot rockets into space.
Yeah, I wonder
Indians.
Where they'll get them. The third world is running out of immigrants to supply the rest of the world with.
That's not true. I saw a story this week that the Indians are they're struggling because they can't get into the United States as much anymore.
Oh, right. Yeah. They were getting stranded at home.
Yeah. Did you know that's a real story? Did you see that?
At home.
It's a real story.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that you can be stranded at home is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, unless the land around your home is flooded and you are stuck on your rooftop, you're probably not stranded at home.
Well, the land around their houses are probably flooded with other H-1B visa holders stranded in their homes as well. They're all stranded because they can't come here. But do you remember everybody freaking out a month ago, maybe, because Trump made the comments about the H-1B visas? It was holy shit, what is this guy doing? Trump's the worst. He hasn't done a single thing like he said he was going to. Now he's going to let all these H-1B people in. And yet now we're getting stories that they're all stranded. It's great.
Yeah, he's totally under control of the globalists and whatnot. We talked last week a little bit about the Turning Point USA soap opera convention, and I just thought
what's happening this season.
The continuation of that info op this week, or whatever info op it is, they're one of their guys, Tyler Boyer or whatever, had this post.
One real quick. Black Hat Destroyer just gifted 5 subs. Thank you so much. We if we missed anybody else who gifted subs, thank you. But yeah, I've not been paying attention to the TPUSA op this week at all.
I haven't been paying much attention, but this popped up in the feed. Democrats have zero enthusiasm and plan for 2028. Oh, good news. So we're gonna crush them and win the fake election. 2026, he says, is the time to slam the door. Don't leave even a crack. All right, so we really gotta crush the Democrats this time around. Every question should be, does this action open the door, even a sliver, for the Democrats? If yes, don't do it. Don't join in. 2028 will define the next 2 decades. Oh, really? So what we're going to do is enforce total group compliance with our leaders, our messaging leaders at Turning Point USA. And if we don't agree with them about anything, then what we're doing is opening the door slightly for Democrats, which makes us traitors. That is pretty incredible consensus forming and messaging. And that will be reinforced by people in the so-called truth community talking about unity and the importance of getting out there to vote as hard as possible in our fake elections.
You'll notice that TPUSA does not sell lotion, and that's because they are not very highly frictional. They don't have any friction over there at all. They have groupthink, like you're saying. Tyler Boyer or whatever, he's the guy that was on the board of that app. I can't remember what it's called now, but he was on the board of that with Kirk's mom, Erica Franzie's mom, Franzvi.
Yeah, I looked that up on the machine the other day. Let me see if I can find it.
It's like this it's a political action app. Like you can use it to hold conventions, you can register people to vote.
It started as a video game app, though.
Did it really?
It was a video game app, and then they repurposed the data, if I recall. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I did read a few things. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, while you're doing that, one of the guys that was president of that board of that company was the guy who threatened Carrie Lake. And I feel like we've talked about this before. He's the guy who threatened Carrie Lake on that recorded thing about don't run this year. Just don't do it. And she's like, why are they going to kill me? Paraphrasing.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, let me see if I can find. How do you spell his last name?
Bower.
No, that's not it. Franz.
Find this.
How do you spell Herold?
Super feed me?
I don't know if that's it. Well, now, how do you spell Erica's France V? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Here we go. It's the company is called, Superfeed. You're right. Superfeed Technologies.
Yeah.
And I can share this image on the screen really quick. This is them being on the board of that together. That's Erica's mom and Tyler Boyer on the board of the Superfeed. And again, I don't know what it means or anything. It's just interesting. Anytime his name pops up, this is what I think of. This is that site right here. Superfeed. Amplify, engage, and drive meaningful connections with confidence and efficiency, one tap at a time. We are helping you win elections around the country, one activism app at a time. Hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you got nothing else,
yeah,
we can go through some boosts and some rants.
Sounds good.
By the way, Wednesday for the Power Hour, instead of the Power Hour, I should say, we're doing our New Year's Eve party. Chris, if you're around and bored and want to join us, you can hop on for a little bit.
I'm often bored on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. I'm not, because I'm at the party that we have.
I might, it looks pretty good for me, by the way, defeating Alpha in our fantasy football championship.
Did you have Derrick Henry or something?
No. Jordan Sather actually has Derrick Henry, and he's using him to beat you.
I didn't know I was playing.
Yeah, you have the third place game.
No, I'm in the fifth place game. I already won my fifth place game.
Then he's doing that to CanCon then. Sorry, CanCon.
CanCon, yeah. Yeah, I'm done. I took fifth. And it looks like, that's the wrong league here. Hold on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm done. I took fifth.
Yeah, you're right.
Beat our boy, the Rattler Gator. Okay, let me show my screen here real quick. We did book our next GART location and date. April 9th through the 12th, Nashville. Tickets are probably going to go on sale here in maybe tomorrow. Hopefully by Monday for sure. I was going to try to get it by today, but we didn't. We got to make some decisions on some pricing stuff, but we're getting close. But stay tuned and make sure you save the date on these. It's going to be great. Can't wait to get out to Nashville. And then for boosts, we got a couple. No Prover Yay for $5 says Zionists seem to dwell on the anti-Semitic rhetoric embedded in the "nothing can stop what is coming" contingent upon its inception, tracking implications into perpetuity. I'm sure it's nothing.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that means. So the idea was that anti-Semitism was baked into Q, or the people who were posting about Q. I'm not sure. I also don't care about claims about anti-Semitism.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. But 1027JS says happy December 27th for $20. Thank you.
Sure.
That's why we're here celebrating. Next Gen Profit for this is a $500 one for the whole company. I read it last night, but the big ones I like to read twice. Now that Miss Bright finally finished arrangements for Guard 11 Nashville, I want to thank all my hosts and staff for an amazing 2025 and look forward to seeing you all again in April. Look forward to that as well. Then we did have a 250 here from Sarah in the Clouds. Happy Christmas, Badlands. Thank you for keeping me informed, entertained, and hopeful. And we also had Chris, I'm assuming this wasn't you, who left $100 saying Merry Christmas.
That
I can't assume it's not you. It might be you. Shouldn't assume.
It's not me.
It's not, okay.
We should give that other Chris his proper credit.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chris. Not you, Chris. The other Chris.
Oh.
Keith O'Higgins. God rest ye merry gentlemen. Let nothing you dismay. Remember, our elections are just fake and gay. That was cute.
Good point. Yeah.
DevHouse1 is now a monthly supporter. Thank you, DevHouse. Debbie O, Texas says, hi, Chris and John. When are y'all coming to Houston, Texas or Stafford, Texas? We were looking at Austin, Texas for Gart. We got that on the radar. We'll see about the rest. Thank you. Jen Hud, guys, did you see this? The Gateway Pundit. This is the Somalian country becoming the president of the UN or whatever for a month. If true, more reason to leave the UN, as if we needed any more reasons. Rocky Top Apologist, a convoluted imbroglio to one is strategy to another. Do you understand that?
It's like a conflict, a fight. Imbroglio, beautiful Italian word.
I'm not Italian, but no surprise you understood that. But I'll take your word for it. I was going to look it up. But thank you, Rocky Top. Honeypot Hounds. Coming in late, Trump said COVID was a hoax. So why would he release that he had COVID and a flu shot on his health checkup about 2 months ago? I find it very unsettling. Thanks.
I should update. I just looked up imbroglio, and it's more about a misunderstanding or disagreement than it is about a fight.
Yeah. Vincent Allen says, define your issue with Patrick. I'm confused. I watch 20 hours a week. Dominion is one part of 12 issues with fake elections, right? Yeah, Patrick Byrne, he just came out and said like 2 weeks ago he was CIA after lying about it previously, saying he was FBI. He was just FBI before, but now he's like, I can confess, CIA. Like, why? And plus the stuff he's saying is on his face. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But outside of that,
that's my problem with it is that it's ridiculous. Like, it's not true. And if he is just lying for the sake of the cause because he's doing the good guy psyop thing, well, then fine. We can say, oh, man, you had us. You were good the whole time. We just couldn't tell because you were constantly lying and seemed like a crazy person. You know, what are you supposed to do? Are we supposed to lie that what he's saying is crazy? Like, we just have to make ourselves liars because the good guy on TV is lying? I'm not down with that, man. And I know that a bunch of people are down with it. It's actually crazy to me that people call themselves truthers and cue people and the rest of it, and then go out of their way to defend liars while they lie, saying that their lies are necessary. Otherwise, the plan that nothing can stop is going to be stopped. If we don't defend liars while they lie, the thing that nothing can stop will be stopped.
Again, man, have you even tried trusting the plan? Like, have you tried that once even?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I actually was talking about that Trump had this post on Truth Social. He's putting marble armrests in at the Trump Kennedy Center. And there's a picture that there's two pictures. There's four total, but two of them have a hand. And if you look at the lines on the hand and count them, 17. And immediately upon seeing, I was like 15, 16, holy shit, 17. I trust Ray now.
So funny. This is so good. Did you actually count?
No.
Okay. Blew my mind. It would have been better if you counted and it was true. I was like 15, 16. Holy fuck, now I trust Ray. So good. So funny. And so true. So I take back what I said. You definitely have trusted the plan before.
And like, I want to just be clear that I'm not trying to insult people who think the Q posts are valuable. I've found value in the Q posts. We have friends who spend a lot more time with them than we do. It's a matter of, like with everything else, it's a matter of how you use stuff, you know? And if you are using an interpretation of anonymous posts on the internet to justify lying on behalf of powerful liars on television to save the country by supporting a plan you don't know, I think there's probably a mistake in that process somewhere.
A mistake or two. Yeah. And I wrote
a plan that nothing can stop, by the way.
I wrote about the Q posts in my part 23, talk about how just logically it makes sense based on the timing and all the people that were part of like the hit list squad and everything. Like, it made sense to me that this is part of something that's likely a good thing. But I've never like read the drops. I never got into it, and I have nothing against the drops themselves either. And some of the people who are like super subscribed to it are awesome. Some of them are awful. Those are the ones we're talking about. Vincent, no, I already read that one. Rocky Topologist. It's like sometimes the chat is a distraction, yet you can't stay away from the chat. You're trying to listen and then looking over at the chat. The chat is a hoe. Chat is a hoe. I like that. It's a side piece. Data 12. Tyler Bowyer. I agree with him. Slam the door shut on Democrats, or do we really want to support bribery, fraud, abuse of kids with lies, blades, blockers, dump elections that can't be supervised? You just shut the door on all of them. It's not just one side.
Yeah.
Slam the door on TPUSA as well. All of these people.
Yeah, and the idea that you're going along in a period of fake elections and prioritizing defeating the Democrats in fake elections, and as part of your prioritization of that, you then message in only the ways Turning Point USA encourages everybody to message. Well, then what you're doing is actually supporting the system. You're not defeating the Democrats. You are preserving the uniparty system.
So I got distracted by the hoe and the chat. G Fontes 119, remake New Year's from amateur night to co-founder night. I appreciate that idea and any reference to the co-founder. But by the way, badlandsmedia.tv/co-founder, you can get yourself a shirt or a hoodie. They're awesome. The Meerkat, I'm your moderator, making Saturday night great again. It sure is. Then G Fontes 119, so a non-governmental organization is an NGO, but is a non-organizational government a NOG?
I suppose.
I like that.
Works. Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's everything. So do you have an outro video? Anything?
Man, I did see one really funny video today in a meme. And then we could also play Ash crushed it in a video.
Oh, we should do Ash
the other day. Do you have that?
Yeah, I have. I reshare it on Twitter. I have it right here.
Okay. And I can save this one quickly. This meme cracked. I mean, it was kind of just made as a meme or turned into a meme, but somebody, an account that I've never seen before, wrote, "I can't sleep. Erica Kirk is grieving through our neighborhood again."
I saw that. That's so good.
And it is here's the video. So this is Erica Kirk.
Real quick, we have one more rant.
Through the neighborhood.
One more rant. Team Smooth, just in case you miss it, Lopat67 gifted 10 subscriptions. Thank you so much, Lopat, and thank you for to Team Smooth for the $1 to share that. Okay, but this is Erica Kirk grieving through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's so good. It's so funny and so true. But how insensitive of us to question the actions and motives and financial benefits of a grieving widow, Chris. How dare we? But okay, we'll end the show with Ash in this clip. It's awesome from the Why We Vote show. I did see a comment. I don't remember where it was, but somebody's like, you need to go watch Why We Vote for whatever. And then somebody in response to that was like, and then afterwards, you need to go watch Jonathan Drake for Why We Don't Vote. It was so good. Yeah. But anyway, hit the thumbs up, everybody. Tune in tomorrow for the shows, including Jonathan Drake's No Treason and Burning Bright's got his show going. I think me and Zach are playing a video game tomorrow. I don't know. It's either a Call of Duty one or like a Battlefield one, but we're trying it with one of our fans. I don't know if you do any of that stuff, Chris, but you're welcome to join.
What's happening here?
So one of our
stream a video game.
We're going to stream playing a video game tomorrow.
All right.
We need to get those exclusive hours anyway. So
hey man, I'm actually not mad because I love video games.
Well, hey, you can join us then if you want. But we'll see how it goes. But anyway, we're going to close out with Ash. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up and we'll see you next time.
Since 2020 and really since 2016, Russia has stolen our elections. China has manipulated our elections. Venezuela has manipulated our elections. Serbia has manipulated our elections. Freaking Canada, Dominion's Canadian company. So we can talk about Canada. The reality is that it was not these foreign nations on the ground engaging in the overt obstruction. the drawer 3 stuff in 2022, the stopping of counting in 5 states on election night, those decisions were made by Americans. And the level of obstruction that has occurred in the halls of public trust to inquiry by the was not foreign nations. That obstruction was done by Americans. The offensive campaign against Trump supporters that happened, earlier on, but certainly hardcore in 2022 was not foreign nations. It was Americans. It was Americans in elected positions, often and always in positions of public trust with statutory authority. So anybody attempting to convince us that we have free and fair elections because we've dealt with China, or we've dealt with Venezuela, or we've dealt with Serbia or Russia or Toronto is part of the election cabal, I would reckon. And I think that they're probably invested in keeping the truth from coming out. And those people should be mocked openly to their faces, because it wasn't, there's most certainly were foreign components. The big bad enemy is globalists, guys. So there's always going to be foreign components. But the operation that has happened since 2020, and again, arguably since 2016, because we're talking about, Russiagate. Russiagate was a cover-up of election fraud, right? That and a massive portfolio of crime, cover-up of a massive portfolio of a crime that includes election fraud. That does not get solved without dealing with the Americans that were a part of it, without accountability for the Americans at all levels of government that violated their oath and engaged in treason. They're traitors. They're traitors to the nation, and that has to be dealt with. And we don't get out of this unless that specifically is dealt with.